I walked into the house after work and something instantly felt wrong. It was too quiet, the kind of silence that makes your stomach drop. Then I saw them, my kids, sitting on the stairs with red, tear-streaked faces, clutching their toys like lifelines. Their voices cracked when they told me what happened. My parents, their grandparents, had taken all of their belongings, beds, clothes, even their little drawings, and moved them down into the basement. Their rooms upstairs had been emptied. When I asked why, my mother's response cut me deeper than any blade ever could. Our other grandson deserves the best rooms. I looked at my children's faces, and what I saw broke me. Confusion, pain, and rejection etched into their little eyes by the very people who should have loved and protected them. Right then, I made a decision. I forced myself to stay calm, even smiled, and told my kids, "Pack your bags." They thought I meant just for the night. My parents had no clue what I really meant. They had raised me on endless lectures about loyalty, sacrifice, and how family always comes first. I believed them. I lived my whole life trying to honor that, even when it meant swallowing my voice. But they always worshipped my brother, the golden child who could do no wrong, no matter how much wrong he actually did. And when his wife had their son, my parents treated that boy like royalty. Meanwhile, my kids faded into the background, treated like shadows in their own home. I kept telling myself the favoritism was harmless, that somehow love would even things out in the end. But that night, seeing my kids shoved into the basement like afterthoughts, I finally faced the truth. My parents never saw me as equal, and now they were passing that same poison on to my children. The signs had always been there. Birthday parties where my kids' gifts were forgotten. Family photos on the mantle that somehow never included them. Only my nephew. My father slipping checks to my brother, pretending I hadn't noticed. And every single time, I stayed silent. For peace. For family. But watching my kids cry on those stairs, I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Not for them, not for anyone. I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I let my parents believe they had gotten away with it. Instead, I planned. Quietly. Patiently. I sat at their dinner table and smiled, while inside I was moving pieces they didn't even know existed. I had more power than they realized. That house they worshipped, the one they treated like a shrine, was tied to a trust. They thought they controlled it, but they didn't know I had been combing through those documents for months, tightening every loophole, updating signatures. And then there was my brother, drowning in debts he kept trying to hide. I knew exactly who to call. Step by step, I built the trap. The first step was getting my kids and me out. I found us a new home, bigger, warmer, truly ours. When I told them we were moving, their eyes lit up. To them, it felt like an adventure. They had no idea it was actually the opening move in a war. Then I turned my attention to the finances. I gathered every record of my brother's shady mistakes, every loan, every failed deal, every skeleton he tried to bury. I handed it all neatly to the people he owed. It didn't take long before his perfect little image started to crack. My parents had to swoop in to rescue him again, but this time their help came with a cost they weren't ready for. Finally, I pulled the last lever. I exercised my rights under the trust. Control shifted. Just like that, the house my parents idolized was no longer theirs. The papers were signed, final, untouchable. By the time they realized what had happened, it was already too late. I waited for Thanksgiving to reveal it. Same dining room, same smug faces. My nephew sitting at the head of the table like a prince, while my kids were pushed to the sidelines. My father raised a glass in a hollow toast, full of empty pride. That's when I slid the documents across the table. "You might want to read these," I said. I'll never forget the look on their faces. Confusion, shock. My brother's skin went pale, my mother's hands shook, and my father's voice cracked when he finally asked, "What have you done?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Taken back what's mine," I said, "and protected my children from you." The silence that followed was heavier than any applause. My parents, the so-called guardians of family, had just been outsmarted by the son they thought was weak, the one they cast aside. I left them sitting there, choking on their own arrogance. My kids never stepped foot in that house again, and they never needed to. Because we finally had a home where love wasn't rationed, where they were never second best. As for my parents and my brother, They were left with the rubble of their favoritism, the house they worshipped, the pride they flaunted, the power they used against me. It was all gone. And I didn't do it out of anger. I did it out of clarity, because betrayal isn't answered with rage. It's answered with precision. Watching my kids laugh in our new home, I realized the sweetest revenge isn't tearing your enemies apart. It's building a world where they simply don't matter anymore.